Picture this. It is 10 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Time. A tanker loaded with Iranian crude oil is moving through the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical choke points on the planet. Then a voice crackles over the radio. U.S. naval forces ordering the vessel to turn back. Not a warning, not a drill, a live enforced naval blockade. The first of its kind by the United States in decades. And just like that, the world changed. This is not a hypothetical scenario. The blockade is real, it is active as of today, and you are about to understand exactly why this move could collapse the Iranian economy from within, force China into an impossible position, and either produce the most consequential peace deal in a generation, or drag the entire region into something far darker. Stay with us. Subscribe right now and hit that notification bell. This situation is moving by the hour, and we are covering every development in real time. Like this video if you want more of this kind of analysis. Now let us get into it. Here's what actually happened. CENTCOM officially announced that as of 10 a.m. Eastern on April 14th, American forces began implementing a blockade of all maritime traffic entering or exiting Iranian ports, across the Arabian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. Critical clarification. U.S. forces will not impede freedom of navigation for vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz between non-Iranian ports. Heading to Saudi Arabia or the UAE, you pass freely. Heading to Iran, you turn around. Hold on to this number, we are coming back to it. Iran exports approximately $270 million in goods every single day. Around 140 million of that is crude oil. The remaining 80 million is petrochemicals, minerals, and metals, all moving by sea. On the import side, Iran brought in roughly $58 billion in goods last year, about $160 million per day in raw materials keeping Iranian factories running. All of it is now at risk. Run the numbers. On exports alone, Iran stands to lose approximately $8 billion every single month. That is an economy-stopping figure. When raw material imports stop, Iranian factories shut down. Production halts, people lose jobs, and when people lose jobs in a country already sitting on years of economic frustration, that becomes existential for the regime. Those protests that shook Iran in recent years did not begin as revolution. They began as economic protests, people angry about prices, shortages, and a government indifferent to their suffering. The regime barely survived them, only through brutal force. Those conditions never went away. With this blockade, they are about to get catastrophically worse. And here is what should genuinely terrify Iranian officials. Time is not on their side. Iran has roughly 50 to 60 million barrels of total oil storage capacity. Approximately 60% is already used up. That leaves around 20 million barrels of spare capacity. Iran produces roughly 1.5 million barrels of crude every single day. Do the math. In approximately 2 weeks, spare capacity is completely full. At that point, Iranian oil companies must begin shutting down wells. Each shutdown permanently destroys between 5 and 10% of that well's future extraction capacity. Money gone forever. This is a ticking clock. The regime knows what time it is. Now, Iran's response has been equal parts threatening and deeply ironic. Iran's military called the blockade illegal. Its Parliamentary Security Commission called it a bluff and warned it constitutes an act of war. Extraordinary language. From the same regime that spent months attacking civilian shipping from countries with no stake in this conflict. As reported by NPR, citing a lawmaker on Iran's own Parliamentary Security Committee, Iran was charging vessels up to $2 million per ship in transit fees just to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, a waterway that under international law belongs to everyone. When Iranian officials call this blockade piracy, ask them to look in a mirror. If you are getting value from this breakdown, subscribe and enable notifications right now. Back to the analysis. According to ship tracking data from Kepler, Hormuz traffic had already dropped sharply before the blockade officially began. A Botswana-registered tanker turned around 41 minutes after Trump's deadline. Another vessel began broadcasting a drifting status near Keshem Island, simply stalling. According to NBC News, only 31 vessels transited the strait in the prior 24 hours versus normal volumes. Just 6 were carrying cargo. The enforcement assets are substantial. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier, 11 destroyers, and the USS Tripoli Amphibious Group in the region, per CBS News. U.S. vessels had already cleared IRGC-laid mines from the strait the previous weekend, a necessary precondition for any serious enforcement. Iran's direct military capacity to contest this blockade is severely limited. Trump stated 158 Iranian ships have been sunk or disabled since February 28th. But Iran has other cards. The most dangerous involves the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, at the southern end of the Red Sea. Iran controls the Houthis in Yemen. Last year, the Houthis launched months of attacks against Red Sea shipping. They can do it again. As one analyst told CNN directly, the major concern is that Iran may activate the Houthis against Red Sea vessels. Deterring that simultaneously with enforcing the Hormuz blockade would stretch U.S. and allied naval resources significantly. Now here is the variable most Western coverage is missing, and it may be the decisive one: China. Almost all Iranian oil exports flow to China, roughly 11 to 13% of Chinese total oil imports. Add Saudi Arabia, Iraq, UAE, Oman, and Kuwait, all shipping through Hormuz, and approximately 50% of China's entire oil supply runs through that 21-mile channel. And who shut down the Strait of Hormuz? Iran did, not the United States. CENTCOM only targets vessels bound for Iranian ports. The disruption to non-Iranian shipping is entirely of Iran's making. That puts Beijing in an extraordinarily uncomfortable position. China had already applied quiet pressure on Iran, helping broker the Islamabad talks this weekend. Beijing needs the strait open. It needs Gulf oil. It is getting neither reliably. Every day this continues, China's energy security erodes further. China consumes more oil than any country on Earth. The expectation in Washington is that Beijing will increase pressure on Tehran significantly. That may prove more persuasive than any military threat. The Islamabad talks, and what 21 hours of negotiations actually revealed. Vice President Vance led the U.S. delegation. Iran sent Parliamentary Speaker Ghalibaf and roughly 100 officials. 21 hours, no deal. According to U.S. officials cited by ABC News, Vance presented 6 core red lines: end all uranium enrichment, dismantle enrichment facilities, retrieve highly enriched material, fully reopen the strait without tolls, establish a regional peace framework, and end proxy funding, including Hezbollah and the Houthis. Washington also sought a 20-year freeze on all Iranian nuclear enrichment. Iranian officials were reportedly willing to discuss the nuclear question. But here is the structural problem that exposed Tehran's true weakness. The person with actual authority to say yes was not in the room. Vance confirmed he called Trump approximately half a dozen times during those 21 hours. The Iranians could not make a similar call to Tehran. They were afraid of interception, afraid an intelligence agency might track Iranian leadership. 100 officials showed up. None of them had the authority to close a deal. This tells us 2 things. First, the Iranian regime is so internally fragmented, it could not conduct secure communications during the most critical diplomatic moment it has faced in years. Second, the process is not over. Iran's delegation took the American proposals back to Tehran. Whoever holds real power there is now sitting with those proposals. A deal remains possible. Vance on Fox News said simply, "The ball is in Iran's court." Trump, despite announcing the blockade, said Iran wants to make a peace deal very badly. Announcing a blockade while saying the other side wants peace, that is the high-wire act playing out right now. The storage clock reaches 0 in 2 weeks. Then well shutdowns begin. Permanent, irreversible damage to a regime already fighting to survive. Brent crude has already risen 40% since this war began, nearing $100 a barrel. The pain at the pump is not over, and time is the one thing Iran does not have. The next 72 hours will be decisive. Iran can escalate, activate the Houthis, challenge the blockade, threaten Gulf shipping. That path leads somewhere very dark. Or Tehran makes the rational calculation that its position deteriorates by the hour, and the time to negotiate while it still has leverage is right now. The question is whether whoever holds real power in Tehran understands the situation as clearly as the numbers describe it. Subscribe now and enable notifications. This story moves fast, and we will be here for every development. If this analysis gave you something the mainstream coverage did not, hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to understand what is really happening. We will see you in the next briefing.